All right, here we go. Video number 2. I kind of just dropped that bulldog video on you guys. Fuck, I just woke up and it was like I gotta make this video. So, like I told you before, I had 16 years in the department, 1-6. I resigned before I was able to retire. Okay, the retirement age is 50 for some of us that came in on the old contract. So why would I do that? All right, I did that because my beliefs no longer aligned with the departments, okay, to include Sacramento and my managers at Donovan. All right, it was extremely unethical and immoral. All right, and I am huge on values. All right, have I lived a past before where I used to fuck up? Yeah, for sure, 100%. But I no longer conduct myself in that manner. All right, so even making these videos and talking about what I'm talking about, there's no way in hell I would have been able to make those videos because there would have been repercussions, right? That's what the department does. It targets people for telling the truth. All right. And how do I know? Because I got a fucking list of write-ups in my filing cabinet. Okay, I used to push against the grain while I was in, and trust me, there's no beating that regime. There's no beating that system. It's a fucking system. It's what it is. So I have more freedom, more leniency to be able to speak on stuff this way. Now, non-designated program. Here we go. I need you guys to understand the totality of circumstances, right? The totality. My position at the time of certain events, my thought process at the time of certain events, my experience level at the time of certain events, right? All this plays a role. My environment. As I stated before, I started at Centinela State Prison. That is a level 3, level 4 GP, general population. All right, there is one S&Y yard, but you get my drift. I promoted to sergeant to Donovan, RJD. That in itself, the promotion, a new role, and the new prison was culture shock, to say the least. So I'm learning. I'm learning on the go. There is no training. It's just you fucking learn as you go, right? It's for those that have been there, worked there, know about it. It is not. It is too much. It's chaos. There's too much going on. And the higher ups will not listen to reason. So the non-designated program, man, NDPS, anyways, fucking non-designated program. You get what I'm saying? I was an acting lieutenant. Okay, so my rank was sergeant, acting in the position of a lieutenant, meaning that I was pretending or in the works of, if everything went well, to a promotion. So you hear these talks, right? Because Sacramento never tells you, they don't give you a heads up to prepare and plan, okay? And this is something I learned in the military is you have to plan for shit, all right? You have to think of contingencies. You have to think of plan B, C's, and D's. There's all kinds of shit you got to think about. So, and just like this Fresno Bulldog integration, this non-designated was like the first of its kind. Well, if you talk to the OGs, you know, they say back in the day everything was mixed, but this is not what I was used to. So in essence, God, you know, they try to do their programming facilities or level 2. Is it a good thing? Yeah, the programming. However, the integration part was fucking foul. Okay? So basically, we get word on extremely short notice that all level 2s and all level 1 inmates are now to be considered not GP and not S&Y. Programming inmates. That's it. That's all we got. That's all this and that. And I stated in the last video, we're not fucking dumb. All right? There's not There's unwritten rules, unwritten laws, okay? It does not take a rocket scientist to figure out what would happen if you put a general population inmate with a sensitive needs yards inmate. All right, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. So we flip the minimum yard first. All right, and that's kind of how it started, and that's what the department does. You know, maybe they'll start lower levels and then try to work their way up. I was already hearing from level fours like, "Oh, this shit isn't gonna work," and I'm like, clearly. So level ones minimum, okay. I can't even remember if it was S and Ys on that facility first or GPs on that facility. What I think it was, anyways, was that the inmates, even if they were GP on the minimum, they didn't know who the fuck was coming off that bus, right? They didn't know if they were going to be GP or they didn't know if they were going to be S and Y. So it's in their best interest to probably take off on them before they find out the hard way, right? And kind of makes sense in a way. So we pre-planned, okay? Now, lieutenants and below, we kind of have some common sense and wits, right? Because we're on the line, we see what the fuck is happening. So, hey, if we know it's going to kick off, let's have a plan and effect where we can quell the violence fast, right? Not that we want to shoot inmates, not that we want to hit them with our baton, not that we want to pepper spray them, but we have a job to do. That job is to quell violence, right? And we weren't violating policy because this was the new policy. As a matter of fact, when that memorandum came out, I made 100 copies and I put it in my filing cabinet because I'm like, this is what's going to save me. This is what's going to save me. Did I know it wasn't right? It's not that it wasn't right. It's that, like I said, I still had a job to do. They were paying me. And mind you, I don't work there anymore. Clearly, enough was enough. And I wasn't violating policy. Okay? I'm kind of like huge on policy. So if I'm not doing anything wrong on paper and I'm being instructed or ordered or directed to implement this new policy, then hey, that's what I have to do. Okay? Whether, unless I call out sick, that's just a whole nother, we're not going to get into that. You get my drift. We set up in the minimum, all right, kind of like with less lethal options, right, to quell the violence. And preservation of life is number one. I will say that about the department. Preservation of life is number one. Trust me, you'll get fucking fired if somebody dies on your watch. Whether they overdose or this and that, they look into it extremely heavily. So, like I said, on paper, there's nothing saying these two groups are going to fight, okay? As a matter of fact, on paper, it's saying go ahead and put these two together, these two groups. So they get in the middle of the minimum, right? And there's two dorms. And they walk. And sure as fuck, the alarm kicks off. Code 3, boom. Code 3 over here. So now you got a code 3 over here and a code 3 over here. Everybody's coming, right? Well, we were already there. So we respawn. We quell it, all right? I had a 40 millimeter launcher, okay? Less lethal. I was a lieutenant. I literally thought that my days of using the 40 was over. But due to the circumstances and due to my position at that time, another different little position, I was able to be right up in the front, like I always tend to be. We quell them, all right? We zip tie them. We escort them out to the basketball courts. And technically, that's just a fight. That's just a riot. In order to be placed in ADSEG, you got to have 2 riots in a 12-month period. So take off the flex cuffs and bring them right back into the building. And we do it all over again. right? And I know what's wrong and I know what's right. And so it doesn't feel right. Right? Because these dudes, they're fucking fighting. You know what I mean? They're fucking fighting. Like, they're in a bad spot. They're in a real bad spot. So we kind of like fucking talk, right? Because cooler heads always prevail. Communication prevails, right? So we kind of tell this one of them, hey man, this isn't gonna work out for you guys. You guys gotta fucking figure this out now, man. Like, you guys have to fucking figure this out. And they all understood what we were talking about, right? Like, hey, this is all a whole fucked up situation all the way around, and we better do some talking, or we better do some, because we've already been fighting and clearly it didn't work. They were able to do that. They were able to talk, okay? And it was a relief. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was a fucking relief and a shock at the same time. Like, god damn, like, fuck. It's like you see two war generals talking, meeting, making the peace, and then like, all right, everything's fucking cool for the time being. That was a non-designated integration, right? It went off on every other institution. And the fire camps, right? Eventually, inmates sued the state and said, what you guys are doing is inhumane. And just up until recently, we got told, fucking halt this shit ASAP, which is fucking dumb to begin with, right? Reactive, not proactive. All right. So this is the two sides to the story, right? And I want you guys to get a clear understanding, man. Not everybody is on board with the BS, okay? Not everybody is on board with that. Don't think that because we wear green that we're fucking monsters, that we're criminals, that we're that's not the case. Clearly that's not the case, man. And as a supervisor, I didn't ever preach that. I did not preach that to my staff. However, don't get me twisted, confused, or mixed up. I was always about the business, right? If an inmate put hands on a cop, then that situation got dealt with. Fucking without a doubt, it got dealt with, right? And that is what it is. Now, to me, that is fair across the board, right? So let's not get things misconstrued here. But I think we can all agree what's wrong and what's right. All right, and that's kind of the point of these videos. That's kind of point of this content, this new me speaking out, right? Because if what's one thing I learned, communication is huge. Being fair is huge. Being firm, fair, and consistent. Okay, it's the shit they taught us in the academy, and even though the powers above puts us in some fucked up situations, often I believe in good. All right, I believe in a higher power. I believe in a higher cause. Okay, and that's to minimize the violence, right? Peace. I'll go as far as to say peace. That's what I'm gonna say, because that's ultimately my goal, right? Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Sign up for the notifications. I'm gonna keep this content coming, right? It's always gonna be speaking from the heart. It's always gonna be from my perspective, from the perspective of the cop, boots on the ground. All right. Have a good day.